Welcome to Dauntless Leadership. In today's podcast episode, I've invited experts and friends who helped me sell my business, the Luminations Group. My all-girl deal team included Stephanie Gaffin of SLS Capitol Advisers and Karen Herman of Venable LLP. Thank you, Karen and Stephanie, for being with me on Dauntless Leadership today. I am so excited to have you, and I have so many questions. But I wanted to start first with asking each of you to talk about what you do now and your current firm and how you got there. Can I start with Stephanie?
Sure. Lisa, thanks so much for having me. I've been so excited to do this with you. I am founding partner of SLS Capitol Advisers. We are a boutique investment bank. And what that means, it doesn't mean that we're a bank. You'd be amazed how many people think that an investment bank is a type of bank because it's in the name. But what it means is that we help business owners sell their companies. So we work at what's called the very lower end of the middle market. So we always say companies that might be 3 to 100 million in revenue. When they're ready to go on to whatever their next chapter is, we help them through that process to find the right buyer and actually get that deal closed. Lisa, as I think you know, I often say that I am the most atypical investment banker that I think you'll ever meet. Not only am I one of fairly few women in the industry, even fewer women-owned firms, but this is also not where I started my career. I started my career in healthcare consulting and operations. But what's been the common path for me is that I've always loved being able to drive change and drive processes. And so this was definitely a mid-career shift for me, but one that I found I really enjoy in terms of being able to help entrepreneurs recognize the economics of what they've created and move on to whatever's their next chapter.
And I can speak personally about the fact that you helped me do that. And we'll talk not just about readying the business near term for exit, but also thinking about it much earlier than I thought to do and what kind of steps entrepreneurs, and in particular women entrepreneurs, should be thinking about as they build their businesses. Karen, could you talk about your current role and also how you got there?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for having me. I've been an M&A lawyer for 25 or more years. I've lost track now. More than 25 years. Seems like forever. But I started my career right out of law school as a IP transactions attorney. So I was helping folks, do tech transfer, patent licenses, trademark licenses, and the like. And then I got invited as a fourth-year associate to go do due diligence on an IP package for a company that was being bought, and fell madly in love with M&A and switched groups right then and there and never looked back. So I style myself as a technology M&A lawyer. Most of my deals, not all certainly, but most of my deals involve technology of some sort. I practice I do about 60% buy side and 40% sell side deals a year. So I do a lot of buy side deals for serial acquirers, including a lot in the government contract space. I'm here in Washington, D.C., so a lot of my clients are in the Dulles corridor. They make and sell things to the government. So whether that's just high tech cybersecurity, or if it's real things that blow up and go boom or fly, I deal with all sorts of those types of industries, as well as I've done animal pharmaceuticals, human pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and then just pure services companies. So pretty much anything that involves IP or technology, I've probably touched it. I do, like Stephanie, I do deals of a broad range. A lot of my deals range from, $5 million to $500 million for the most part. I don't do the huge public company deals. That's just not where my passion is. My passion is working with the entrepreneurs on the small side of the deals, or buying a growing company that's really going to change the trajectory of my client's business. So I just have preferred to play in this space than all those gigantic deals, but I love it every minute.
And it shows, and you work hard, that I know, couple of themes already emerging that we should talk about is all three of us have made a shift at some point in our career to something we felt really passionate about. And those might have been things that we would never have imagined that we were going to be doing. So I want to talk a little bit about that. That fits right in with being dauntless. Also, I love that you say my deals, and Stephanie does too. And that's part of why I hired you and Stephanie. I felt like you would view my business as your business and help me merchandise it and market it the way that I wanted to see it on the market. And that was not true of everybody that I interviewed, both from the legal standpoint or the investment standpoint. And then also, I want to talk a little bit about women entrepreneurship specifically, because I do think from a confidence standpoint and from a packaging standpoint, maybe we need a little different type of TLC and handling. So back to Stephanie, do you agree with that women entrepreneurs may need a different approach? And if so, what is that approach?
Yeah, it's you're giving me the opportunity to step up on one of my very favorite soapboxes, which is that one of the things that I see repeatedly that frankly just breaks my heart is when I talk with an entrepreneur who didn't realize that they had something to sell. And so they let the business decline, they let the revenue decline, they let the contracts expire, thinking that they would just close down the business. And by the time they find their way to us, now we're faced with, we either have to, we have to try to sell a business that's been declining, not because it wasn't a good underlying business, but because the business owner didn't realize that they had something to sell. And so they waited too long to start. I see this definitely in businesses of both of genders of business owners, both men and women, but I see it far more frequently with women. And I think as we see, if you look back at some of the data, without going at all the nitty gritty, we are, I believe, in the first wave, large wave of women entrepreneurs and women business owners being ready to exit. So understanding, and I know we'll talk about this later, but number one, that there are things in a business to sell. Number two, there are things that you can do to make sure that you have a business that you can sell. And number three, start earlier than you think. Don't let all of that economic value dissipate before you go down that path.
Thank you for saying that. And we are going to talk about that on your podcast. I encourage everybody to listen to Stephanie's podcast on SLS Capitol Advisers. One of the things that you've said often is it needs to be the right buyer, the right time, and the right story. And I'd like to talk about all three of those as we get into it. It's important to me that all of the folks listening understand that they may not see the full value of what they bring to market. And it's really helpful to have an outside objective advisor help you understand what is the package that you can bring to market. Is there one? If there isn't yet, what do you need to do to get there? I thought that it was time to sell my business because I have 3 kids, none of whom are going to step into my place and run the Illuminations group, but didn't know if I was ready to sell or if I had something to sell. And that was part of the process, part of the journey of getting to an exit for me. I want to switch to Karen. And Karen, can you talk about, do you think women entrepreneurs take a different kind of touch? What is that? And when do you usually get involved in the process?
Yeah, I can go through both of those. I have to be honest with you. I think I've only sold 2 companies that were owned by women. It may be just the place where I play, the high, cyber tech, sort of high tech, gov tech businesses, but I don't run into female entrepreneurs very often. On occasion, I'll have, I actually sort of have kept track over the years because it's been a frustration point for me. Even just female shareholders of the business, there's usually at most one, sometimes maybe there's two that have, there's obviously option holders and the like in the company that have, but as founding shareholders, I've rarely encountered them. I don't know why that is. I suspect it's probably just a combination of the marketplace, the lack of capital, lack of funding. It's just I don't know exactly what is causing that. So I'm glad to hear, Stephanie, that you actually have encountered some. We should work together more often. But I just don't see it. When I have seen it, with you came through. Well, you had hired Stephanie before you got to me, so I found that you were already pretty well versed because Stephanie had done a pretty good job of coaching you up as to what we needed to be looking for and what the next steps were. But I will say that I would recommend people to come to the lawyers even earlier, like with not just months earlier, but really years earlier. One big thing that I think a lot of people forget is that there's tax planning that you can do, estate planning that you can do, that if you get a year, 2 years before the business is sold, there's a lot of upside. If you're thinking about putting some of your shares in a family trust or a directed giving trust or something like that, anything like that, it's really important to do it before the fiscal year in which you sell your company. So not only is it important to get a relationship with an investment banker early on, just to sort of help you think through. And some of the bankers that I work with, including Stephanie and her team, will be friends with you for years, knowing before you're ready, just helping guide, and will really take the long view for business development, to be sure. But it really is helpful, and it's also helpful though to at least ask your banker, should we be talking to an an estate planner or some sort of a financial advisor, and not just financial advisors who will help you figure out where to invest the money at the backside, but a true estate planning lawyer who understands tax and can help you think through generational wealth issues.
I think a lot of women don't think, and maybe entrepreneurs in general, we think less about generational wealth. As I said, if anything, we're more on the humble side. Is there even wealth here? Exactly. So that's really good advice.
And that's why I raise it, because I think that's true for a lot of family-owned businesses or women-owned businesses, that you're really just so focused on making sure that you're making payroll and the lights are on. You're not really thinking about, well, how do I, protect my family, and how am I going to create wealth for my children?
I was going to say it's something that we've learned is actually now when we start working with a new client, on my list of questions in that first kickoff meeting is now, do you have a wealth manager that you are working with? Because that's not our area of expertise. And so, and if they don't, we know a number. And so I always say, look, if you have one, great, make sure you're talking to them. If not, let's make sure that we get you connected to one, because there are people out there who, do a great job, are really focused on, again, Karen, you said it really well, of taking that view to say, how do we make sure that we're going to protect the assets that you're hopefully going to get from this transaction?
I wanted to just jump in and say, I did not know this. And I am doing this podcast partly because I want to learn. And I think that's a really important point, coming earlier to have a conversation with an estate planner or wealth manager, earlier to talk to an attorney or an investment bank. And maybe that's for another podcast in the future. How early is early? How do we get out to earlier stage entrepreneurs, women and men, folks of all walks of life? Because I think that is something that's not well understood. And as I happened to be going through a divorce just before this process, so I stumbled upon the need for planning, but I might not otherwise have. And so really important that everybody hears that as you think about starting a business, and many of us do, that you think about your future success and how to plan early for that. Karen, I wanted, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Honestly, Lisa, I think I would tell you to think about it at the moment you're starting your business. Because whether you're creating it as a limited liability company, an S Corp, C Corp, all of those things impact your future exit abilities. So I think a $5,000 conference with a lawyer, and have somebody prepare those documents for you up front is money well spent in the long term if you think you've got a business that you might want to exit in the future.
So what we're saying is you start planning for exit the day you start planning your business.
Yes.
And that's something that I would like people to take away from this podcast is even though you may be 10 years out or more, think about the future today and plan for success, right? We should always plan for success. If it doesn't happen, oh, well, I told you I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had a couple of spectacular failures, but plan for success. And that means setting up your organization, your corporation, even if it's just one person, which mine was in the beginning, thinking about this. What does dauntless mean to you? And then do you have advice that we should be sharing with emerging leaders and particularly emerging women leaders?
Dauntless means being brave, not listening to the people who say that you can't do it, not believing that you don't have what it takes. I guess that's what it means to me. And as far as what advice I would give to women leaders or emerging women leaders, it would be just just keep at it, right? Don't give up. Obviously there's areas and times and places where if something's not working out, like you said, Lisa, something's just not working out, maybe it's time to don't throw good money after bad, call it quits. But for the most part, it's just a bump, right? It's just something that if you just keep pushing, you're almost through it. Success is just around the corner. And I think if you're dauntless and you just continue to push forward, even in spite of the negativity, in spite of people thinking like you're not being successful as you should be, getting past some of this fear of how we're being perceived by others and just pushing forward.
Thank you. Stephanie, same question.
Yeah, so I think to me, dauntless is pushing forward, not in the absence of doubt, not in the absence of fear, but it is pushing forward past the doubt, past the fear, past the obstacles. It is knowing what it is that you want to achieve and being determined that you're going to figure out a way to get there. It is, Karen, I think this is what you were just saying, right? It's not that, and I think about the character of Rebecca Welton in Ted Lasso, right? Who I think is just a phenomenal example of this. And for any of you who've watched the series, and the exercise that she does in front of the mirror to build herself up, right? It's that thought of, I know where I'm going and I'm going to figure it out. Right. And again, very much what Karen was just saying, I'm going to push forward. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Matter of fact, it's probably going to be hard, but it's that determination to figure it out. And I think the advice that I would give along those lines is don't sell yourself short, right? Like I think it becomes too easy to say, look, somebody else, others who've done this, they must be smarter than me, or they must be braver than me, or they must be more confident than I am. And I think, Lisa, just as you said, after sometimes you hung up on the Zoom and then, you held it together, you had that great confidence during the Zoom, and then we hang up and then we're like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? And we all do that. And to recognize that we all do that. And I think that's where, women very often will, they'll put forward what they want, and then they'll say, is that okay? Well, no, don't ask if it's okay. That's what you want. So don't sell yourself short.